to the She Leads podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Garland, CEO and founder of She Leads Media, a global media company dedicated to the advancement of women leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide. I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU and Rice University, where I teach on the topic of entrepreneurship. I'm a mom to two wonderful young men and married to my best friend from college. Join me each week as I dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women entrepreneurs and leaders. My hope is that these conversations and their advice will encourage you to put yourself out there and gain the visibility that you and all women deserve. We're all about stripping away the sugar-coated conversations and moving boldly in the direction of our magnificent dreams. For far too long, women have been conditioned to soften their words, modify their actions, and show up in the world to conform to outdated at best and harmful at worst cultural norms and ideals. Why? To keep those who are outside of the power structures from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence. This has prevented women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. The She Leads podcast is here to shine the light on all the incredible women, to encourage us to show up, speak up, and showcase the amazing work we do. Speak with confidence about the innovative and transformational thoughts that we have, and celebrate the positive impact that we are making in this world, both personally and professionally. So let's do this. Let's lead. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. I'm so excited today because my guest is Linda Duncombe. She's the executive producer of the movie The Queen's Jewels, which is coming out soon. And formerly, she served as the executive vice president, chief marketing, data, and digital officer at City National Bank, which is also known as the Bank to the Stars. Linda has 35 years of experience in banking and global marketing, and she's led high-impact initiatives, including the establishment of Citi's fintech division and spearheading City National's critical funding technology during the pandemic. Linda has cultivated relationships with major entertainment organizations such as SAG-AFTRA, the Recording Academy, and the Tribeca Film Festival. Linda's been recognized by Variety as one of Hollywood's most powerful women for 5 consecutive years. And she was recently honored with the Medal of the Order of Australia, an award given to recognize outstanding service or achievement. Linda, I cannot wait to talk to you. Welcome to the She Leads podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I am so excited to speak to you because you are truly a woman who is leading. And the audience of the She Leads podcast is interested in learning about women that have been able to ascend through their careers and then also to make an impact, right? So can you just kind of wind back and tell us, you're here, you're in the United States, but clearly you were born in Australia. So can you just give us a little bit of your background and what led you to City National?
Yeah, no, thank you. It is an Australian accent that you hear. My mum says when I lose my accent, I've got to go home. So I'm keen to keep it. So very quickly, when I was a child, I was watching TV shows like Charlie's Angels and Wonder Woman, and I was 9, and I turned to my parents and said, I'm going to live in New York. And while they were incredibly supportive, I think they hoped I would grow out of it, and I did not. I joined Citibank with the specific purpose of wanting to have that be the opportunity that brought me to the US. And so I was very focused on that and loved working in banking from a community perspective. Citibank was huge. It had just come out of a crisis. It was looking for different perspectives. Australia experienced the global crisis very differently in 08, 09. And so I had this wonderful opportunity to join City Australia and then started to do global and regional initiatives. And I really was putting my hand up to try new things, to be a part of opportunities that were outside of my comfort zone, so I could start to learn and be in a room where there was a lot of skill sets that I could contribute to, but was a much bigger opportunity than just me working on my own. I thrive in team environments. And then as City progressed and progressed, I was getting really comfortable I'm in this role, and briefly, and sadly, my brother passed away. And my mum said to me, like, what are you waiting for? Like, you've wanted this dream since you were a child. You're working for the bank that's going to give you your dream to live in New York. And so my extraordinary mother, who is one of my biggest supporters, said, start to really push that agenda at the bank. And I did. And the following year, I moved to New York. I didn't know anybody. I am not a big extrovert. I'm an introverted extrovert, and I have to find my people. And I found that at first really difficult, but I was in New York. I loved it. I was part of City FinTech. I was part of their founding partners and got to do wonderful things all around the world, helping to bring technology to areas that possibly weren't going to get access to it. And that really kind of spoke to who I am as a person. And so City National, I wasn't looking to leave Citibank, but City National is based in Los Angeles and it's closer to home. And so it's an overnight flight from Los Angeles. And so my mum's aging, and I felt like being closer would be a good thing. And so this amazing job came up where I would be running all of the community outreach, which City National is phenomenal in doing. And so I took the leap and I moved to Los Angeles, again, not knowing anybody, but really getting back to the roots of what got me into banking in the first place, which was I have been doing it for 35 years. And when I first joined, it was a valued member of the community. And then that soon lost that credibility. And I believe you have to earn the trust of your communities. And City National was very much trusted by its clients and communities. And I loved the idea of being back in banking where the bank really was integrated and wanting to help its local communities. And that's how I landed at City National and loved my 5 years there.
Whoa, Linda.
I know that was a lot. I'm going to come up for air now.
Whoa, you have just taken me on a journey around the world and through an emotional roller coaster. I definitely want to just say, how sorry I am to hear about your brother and
Thank
how
you.
incredibly wonderful your mother is.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get upset.
I know. I'm all emotional.
Whoa,
She's,
to say like, daughter, go live your dreams. We go around this world one time, right? So
yeah.
like just go do it. So what a beautiful mother you have, and
Thank you.
how lucky you are. It
Thank you.
makes me so happy. We'll talk more about business, but it makes me so happy to know that women that were even from, a generation before us, that they evolved and changed to recognize what was so important and to see just drive and to feed that drive and to say, go live your dreams, because I truly believe that women are so special and we can do so much. And, even within the world of finance, which sometimes or often can be, very cold, logical numbers,
Yeah.
to find a place within banking. And you're so right that it is or it was all about the community. It speaks so much to what women do. We take our skills, we take our power, we even take money and we use it for good. So I love your journey so much. And
Thank
it's
you.
funny because, before we spoke, I was like, this is a corporate career woman, so interesting and everything. But the thread that underlies it is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I just admire that. So amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
So good.
No,
So
thank
good.
you.
So
Thank
good.
you.
So wow, Linda, I think that there's so much to talk about specifically to the She Leads podcast audience, because so many of us, and myself included, we did start out in corporate, and
Mm,
as you sort of rise through the ranks and you look up and you see what's around you, oftentimes it's not a lot of other women. It is definitely, as you go up, the women start to thin out, and not, I
yeah.
don't think it speaks to our abilities. I think it speaks to something else societal.
Mm,
But at a certain point, we decide we want to do something for our communities, for ourselves. We want to leave a legacy. And that's when women often start businesses. We've got all of this experience, and
mm,
it's almost corporate experience that is so valuable, but sometimes it doesn't translate
mm.
into entrepreneurship. Now, you are executive producing a movie, which is not starting a business. It's a whole other. It is a business, but it's a whole other leap that I am totally not familiar with. So, can you also just kind of tell me a little bit of the background of how did you go from just being an executive at City National Bank to executive producing a movie?
Thank you. I've always tried to do things where I feel a love and passion for it. So the boards I sit in, like SAG-AFTRA, and you mentioned the Music Academy with the Grammys. Like I do those things because I love what they give to people. And with the movie, I was a very small investor, and I was leaving the bank. I'd had a wonderful time. There was big change going on, and the person who wrote and directed the film, Josh Friedman, who is basically my little brother. It's my American family, asked me to start getting more involved. And I said, look, I would love to take a look at the financials and possibly be more valuable in the experience that I brought, because City National Bank was also, to your point, the bank to the stars. And so I understand the industry. We would finance a lot of entertainment. I've sat on kind of all aspects of making a movie, except actually being on set and being someone who helps to make the movie. And I'm like, I bring this unique perspective. And all of the investors are very successful business people, but they've never been involved in entertainment. And so they wanted to get into this vertical and saw that I could be someone that could oversee the funding and the role of executive producer. And I think one thing that I'll speak for myself as a female is I think we are sometimes our own worst enemy, and we can really get that imposter syndrome. We get into our head, and I definitely get into my head. And it was this person, Josh Friedman, who said, like, you're representing business people that have, significant net worth. You should be the person to do this. Like, don't doubt it just because you've never done it before. And so I saw it in the perspective of when I came from like Australia to New York, I didn't know anybody, and I backed myself. When I went from New York to LA, I backed myself, and I did these things. I think because as a child, my parents basically created an environment for my brother and I, where it's like, you can do anything you want. The only person who's
Mm,
going to stop you is you. And
mm,
so I took the leap, and because I knew I had the business cred,
mm,
and this is a start of a business. You're right. Like this is one film, and we're going to be making more films. We're reviewing scripts right now. We're talking to some teams about some things they want to get us involved in, and I think it was about like saying to myself, Linda, you have the resume for this. Like you have the scorecard. Like you can do this. You know how to balance financials. And what was complex a little bit about this film was we've been in 4 different countries, 3 different currencies, and we've had hundreds of people working on this film. Well, I've done that before in banking. And
yeah.
so I had to remind myself of that. And so, and to your point, even in the movie business, while I have wonderful friends and have really great networks from working at the bank, most of the people I'm working with in this film are men. Like I sit around a table and I'm still the female, and I got myself to that because I backed myself in my own business. And
Mm,
so I say to the people that listen to your podcast, if you're unsure of making the leap, I would make it, because I think asking yourself what if is torture versus I did it. And there's always going to be learnings. There's things that I would do differently in this film. It was my first one, but that skill and experience I take into the next one,
mm,
and not just the next move, but the next experience that I have professionally and personally. And so I'm loving it. We're in post production right now. I'm flying to Vancouver tomorrow, and we're super excited about it. And so I continue to be that 9-year-old who's living her dream, and I just feel very blessed to be able to do it. But you got to back yourself. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You might not get the complete dream as you saw it, but then all of those contributing factors make who you are. Like the person speaking to you today, Adrian, is the person who's gone through all of those wonderful and terrible, but all of those life experiences that make me a very joyful, positive person. And I'm really glad I backed myself. I feel really good about it. I feel at peace about it. And I'm like,
mm.
why did I wait so long? Like, why did I wait so long?
Yeah. Well, wow. I think you waited so long because you were building the skills that you needed and the confidence that you needed to do that. And one of the things that you are saying right now that's like really hitting me is that you backed yourself. You're talking about how you backed yourself from when you came to New York, and that you
Yeah,
continue to back yourself and have your own back. I think that's
yeah,
something that, again, sweeping statements when it comes to women, that we don't often have our own back. We have everybody else's back,
It's
right?
so true.
Oh my
So
gosh.
true.
But we don't have our own back. And so if we have our own back and we back ourselves, I agree. There's almost like nothing that we can't do. And what is the worst that can happen? You can stumble, you can fall, you can make a mistake, but no scraped knee never hurt any
Yeah.
of us, right? It's like
Yeah.
you learn what not to do. I think there's this culture and it's this societal programming that just kind of tells us, and I think it's women, I think it's men too, but it tells us that when we embark upon something that it does have to be done right, like whatever the heck that means.
It's true.
you know
It's true.
it's only right when you look at it in hindsight. And so I have so many questions that sort of pop up because I'm fascinated with the entertainment industry and I kind of want to get some definitions down. And then I want to ask you just a question about like, how do we get more women to be executive producers, to put our stories out there, to back one another's stories? Like I want to talk all about that. But
Hmm.
before we kind of go there,
Yeah.
as an executive producer, can you just kind of define what that is? Because I'm so adamant about making sure that when terms are thrown around, that there's somebody that says, wait a minute, what is that? Explain
Yes.
it to me. So can you explain to us what is an executive producer for a movie?
Yeah. And so our film is an independent. And so as an executive producer, I'm responsible for raising the money to make the film. And then I oversee its distribution to the production companies and make sure that they're spending it in a correct and aligned way to a budget that we've all signed off on before any money is released. And raising funds in film is very difficult right now after COVID and then the strikes. Like the industry is really
Yeah.
struggling. It's very sad. And so being able to do that and being able to do that as a first time EP, but also with investors that have not been involved in entertainment. I purposely and actively went outside of the entertainment industry because everybody's fishing from the same pond and there's no more fish. And so we have to go
Ah,
find new ponds. And
yeah.
that's where I kind of put my lens. And so I went to a very different group of investors who are incredibly successful. And Josh was incredibly helpful in doing that with me. And I also took on the role of producer as well. So we have a number of producers, and I also became one of those as we went along because I saw as the EP, I would be oversee and responsible for the money. But then I saw at an operational level things that I could be doing where my banking experience could be helping around just being more efficient, also just creating a positive experience for people. And so I
Mm.
took on the role of one of the producers as well. But the EP basically raises the money and then oversees it to make sure it's spent correctly and contractually as to all the budgets. And when we had multiple exchange rates and currencies around that stuff, that's where my banking experience really came into play to make sure that volatility was not impacting a budget, which I really enjoyed. So that's basically what an EP is.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I think the whole money part of everything, even it's parallel with entrepreneurship, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much more that we can do to help women, funding other women, also to help women to get the capital that they need to start and scale their businesses. It's an area of opportunity, right? So
Mhm.
I imagine in the movie industry that's an area of opportunity as well. We need to get more women coming in as executive producers, raising money and funding projects and stories that tell the incredible stories of wonderful women around the world. And, I didn't even ask, can you just give an over the top summary
Yeah.
of what the Queen's Jewels is all about?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I do think women have a huge opportunity because we are, and again, a generalization may be a little unfair, but all the women that I've seen is when we raise money or we have money and we're responsible, we spend it like it's our own. We're very
Yes.
careful. We're more risk adverse, and so we will not take what we see to be a risk that can't be fairly measured and assessed. And so I just feel like when we raise money or we're responsible for funding it like especially as entrepreneurs it's really we're very aware that it's our money, and
Mm,
so I think that that brings us a much stronger lens. So the film, the objective of what Josh was trying to do and why I got so excited about it was is because a lot of films of late, there's not a lot of family films where grandma can take her grandchildren and everybody can enjoy a film. So this is a family film to enjoy and to escape like I did when I was a kid going to the movies. And so it's loosely based and inspired by a true story. In 1715, 12 ships were coming through the waters of the Bahamas and Florida, and it was the Spanish king was coming, had sent these fleet of sheep to have jewelry brought back to his new queen. And huge storm, all 12 ships go down. And when you're in Vero Beach and Melbourne Beach, where we actually filmed some of this, it's called Treasure Cove for a number of reasons. A lot of this treasure did wash up onto the shores, and there's all these museums and whatnot to honor that. In Josh's story, the 12th ship is never found.
Mm,
And a young boy, his dad leaves him a clue, and him and his new friends go on a treasure hunt. And so, and actively, it's not making any political or religious statements because we just want kids to have fun with their families. And
sure.
so, yeah, so this is our first film is about entertaining, and we've had some really good feedback around that. But you are right, there are some really important stories to be told, and we've started to look at some of those stories where to be true doesn't mean it has to be sad. There are so many uplifting stories, and especially we're looking at one now of a female where it's just a really uplifting story about how she was able to build like a little bit similar like me, grew up in government housing and is had built this wonderful business that she's left to her grandchildren. You know, came from a demographic where she wasn't set up automatically with family funding and whatnot, and was able to really push ahead. And that's a very uplifting story about a female not being told she couldn't do something. And so we're looking at that script right now. But yeah, so The Queen's Jewels, which I absolutely love. I think Josh is incredibly talented, and I feel very gifted that he allowed me to be a part of this, is a happy movie. And the
Yeah.
acting is incredible, but it's just a happy movie. And there's very strong female characters, very strong man. It's like it's really diverse. It was naturally diverse. It just came really just naturally, and it's a fun movie. And so I tell people of my age demographic, it's Indiana Jones on water.
Yeah. Well, that's what it sounded like to me. I was like, oh, it sounds like a great adventure and treasure
Yeah,
hunt and, all of the mishaps that everybody I'm sure gets into and the situations that they have to get themselves out of and
exactly.
all of that. And that does
Exactly.
sound like so much fun. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I wanted to ask a question, just an opinion, really.
Yeah.
So, let's say that there are these stories, right? These
Yeah.
uplifting stories or just important stories that, like, let's say I have or anybody listening to this podcast has. How would somebody go about putting that together and getting it in front of someone that could help them to get their movie at least seen by people like Josh and you?
Yeah, yeah. And it's such a good question and it's really difficult. And so
Yeah.
I've seen some really talented people not get their opportunity because it is an industry that I'm very blessed because I worked in it from the banking side. I had those networks. And so when I'm making phone calls, people are taking my calls. Most people, you have to go to a website, you fill out a form, they'll come back to you. They won't just take your calls, which is really sad when the industry is in such trouble right now. Like you do a lot of the people, especially in Los Angeles where I'm based, there's just really good people. And it's not just the actors or those specific to the film, it's the whole ecosystem, the catering, the
Yeah.
transportation, everybody's suffering. And so that's very, very sad. I would say definitely if you can get into a class like a local college or a local university that helps to make introductions to agencies and whatnot. And so there's
Oh,
some really good programs at local colleges and like kind of like adult like nighttime classes. I would do that. And I say this sincerely. If someone wants to send their script and they're reaching out to you, I'm happy to take a look at it. I would say there's a lot of people in the industry that really do want to see talent, like being able to rise to the top and have an opportunity. It's a really tough industry, but if there's some way that I can pay it forward like it has been for me,
yeah.
I'd be happy to speak to anyone about it. But the people that I see coming through that don't have the contacts have come through some kind of like program through a college seems to be the easiest way to get about that.
Thank you so much. But how generous of you. That is just
Yeah.
so incredibly wonderful. I actually know we can talk about this off podcast, but I know a wonderful woman that puts together a film fest in Long Island, and it's called the Mom Film Fest. And she's
Yeah.
also very involved in just making sure that, women who are moms are also hired for not just, film writing or movie producing, but all of the other, like you're saying, ancillary services that go to support how movies, television shows, all of that get made.
Yeah.
There's just so many
Would love that.
wonderful, talented people that, it's so true. It's like who you know, and you have
Yeah.
to be very proactive and I would say like consistent and disciplined with cultivating that network. If you're not working in it, you have to put forth a ton of effort to sort of break in. Otherwise it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And making that effort, like me, like I'm not a big extrovert, but I really am determined to make this a business that grows for myself. And to be doing this with Josh is such a privilege. And I see us making a very, like, I think if we were talking in 2 or 3 years, I'd have a couple of more films under my belt and there would be all these things that I was doing. And I want part of my story to be that I'm helping others. And because
Mm,
I really want to pay that forward. So yeah, and I know Josh feels the same. He's incredibly talented. And so to be able to do that with someone that I love deeply, who's my family, and then he knows we want to be able to bring people along if we can and create opportunities for them. And just really quickly, Adrian, because you touched on something where one of our talent, it was the first thing where she was on set, but she'd been away from her newborn child. And we were able to look at the out of days. So what days was she going to be filming? And I was able to create an opening where she could go from the Dominican Republic, go home, spend a couple of days with her little boy, and then come back and meet us in Florida. Now, that didn't actually cost me anything. There was some scheduling changes and whatnot, but what it meant to her, that we
mm,
understood it was important. And she could have brought her child there, but it was the first time she wanted to go home and see him in his environment. That's the kind of leader that I want to be in my
mm,
own business. I want to spend that extra time of like changing all those schedules and some people not being happy with me, but it really cost us nothing to make her happy. And like that, she then comes back to the set more energized than ever. Like, but all I want to do is give her a moment to go be a mum.
mm,
It was important for her. And Josh was completely supportive of when I approached him about this because they're the kind of people that we want to be as we grow our business. And so,
mm.
to hear the story of your friend in Long Island, like it's really important to understand, like, if you want your best out of people, you can't just like say everybody is one size fits all. Like it's just really like arrogant. You got to realize
Mm.
people have lots of things going on in their lives and like anything you can do to help make that easier for them. I of course I want to be that kind of leader.
I want to say like this is the way. There's this like phrase that just keeps coming to me like this is the way. Like this is the way forward where we're all looking through a lens of humanity. And how
Yeah,
can we be more kind and compassionate while also being responsible for
yeah,
budgets and understanding that there's a whole entire organization, behind
yeah,
us and just taking all of those things into consideration. Like, I feel like that is the way forward in movie making and,
yeah,
and also in business. We have to recognize that people are not just machines that are on some factory line that all that we're good for is producing, production. Like we are human beings and we have different, ebbs and flows and cycles. And the more that we can honor that, I do think the better outcome that we can get. And it warms my heart to hear that not only you, but also Josh, who is a man, has that heart as well. And I do think that it's the only way forward for all of us as human beings. So I love that. And you're talking, I'm like, oh, Linda is going to be starting her own production company too. I feel like I see that in the
exactly.
future.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. We are going to do that, and you're right. And like I think just two things that we were kind of chatting on that just kind of pops to my mind. Like, there's not a single friend, like male or female, like where I've gone, can you help me? And they've said no. Like
Yeah.
asking sometimes is really hard, and I'm getting better at it. And something
Mm,
that I am terrible at that I'm trying to work really hard on is like you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. And this comes back to your about backing ourselves, Adrian. Like I really think you're onto something here. Like we literally sit on a plane and they say before you can help others, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. That's in life. Like
yeah.
that's in life. And I don't think, generally speaking, again, that women are great at that. We're like making sure everybody's got their mask on. And by the time it's for us to get our mask on, we're gasping for air.
Yeah, we're
Like,
dead.
like, yeah, exactly. Like they pulled out, they pulled out the paddles. They're trying to revive us. And there's, but there's something to that. Like, and so you really hit on something there. I have friends saying to me, Linda, like, stop, like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be everything to everybody. Like, you're
Mm,
not invincible. And that's where I think when I have not been good at asking for help, it's those kind of times when I'm like, if I just back to myself, what's the worst someone could say? No, but I can refer you to this person or whatever the outcome is. Like really learning to put your own oxygen mask on makes you a better human to everybody that you love and the people that are counting on you from a work perspective. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's even more the case because you don't have a big group of people around you. So you have to use your energy and really impactfully. And so you have to be,
yeah.
it's something that I think as women, we have to just really be mindful of.
Yeah. And we do, I love the oxygen mask analogy, but even more so, I love the backing analogy because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
the oxygen is like what we need to keep going. But like
Yeah.
when I picture it, I think of us sitting there with the oxygen, like, okay, we're breathing, but we're not necessarily moving, right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
The backing is like what we need to get into motion and where the confidence comes from because it's through the doing that we build that muscle. Like, okay, I did this before, I could do this again. Like I have the proof, I have the receipts. And so I love the analogy of the oxygen mask, but more so I love the like I'm backing myself, I'm supporting myself, I'm
Yeah.
moving myself forward. It feels,
Yeah.
oh, it just feels so good. So thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. And I would say like let's end on that. Let's maybe, since this is coming out in December as we are closing out this year, let's ask the question of everybody that's listening, like, what are you doing to back yourself and have your own back now, starting today? And
Mm.
into 2025, because we are going to need to have our own back and we're going to need to have each other's back as well. So
Yeah.
Linda, just thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you. And like I said in the beginning, you took me on a roller coaster. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I loved it. Adrian. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's going to listen. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
And one last ask. Please let us know, when is The Queen's Jewels coming out? Where can we see it? And how can people get in touch with you?
It's very exciting. The film is coming out in the first week of April. We're in final editing now. We are showing some unedited versions, which is very exciting. But the website, thequeensjewelsmovie.com, has all of our contact details. So, and including my email on a sizzle reel there. So thequeensjewelsmovie.com. So anybody who wants to reach out, please do, whether it's to find out more about the film or if I can give anybody guidance about the industry or anything, I'm happy to help anyone who's listening. So thank you, Adrian.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.
This and all of our episodes are brought to you by the She Leads Podcast Network, the podcast network for women, by women. Thanks so much for listening to the She Leads podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support us, please share it with others, make a personalized post about what you took away on social media, and please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. This helps our guests and our show to continue to gain visibility and traction. To learn more about how She Leads Media helps women to gain visibility, you can follow us on Instagram at She Leads Media, or you can head on over to sheleadsmedia.com. If you'd like to network with me and other amazing women, don't forget to join us each year for the She Leads Live conference. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.